Anderson Cooper spoke to Texas State Representative Bryan Hughes about the insane party platform in Texas that includes support for the bullshit ex-gay reparative therapy. It's absolute nonsense. There's no evidence to support it that it works. So watch them go back and forth and watch Anderson Cooper run shit.
This is about giving people choices. If they want this, it should be available to them.
Even if the vast majority of medical associations say that actually this form of alleged counseling or alleged therapy can be harmful to kids. There's a task force, the American Psychological Association, that said that efforts to change sexual orientation are not only unlikely to be successful, but they involve a risk of harm. The American Psychiatric Association basically says the same thing, that it potential risks of depression, anxiety, self-destructive behavior. Do you really think that kids should be subjected to that based on what maybe their parents want?
From what I've read, there's medical literature on both sides of the issue. This is really about choice, about options.
There's really not. It's really just not accurate to say that, doctors are evenly divided. I can give you a list: the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Counseling Association, American Psychiatric Association, the American Psychological Association, the American School Counselor Association, the National Association of School Psychologists, National Association of Social Workers. They represent 500,000 mental health professionals. They all say this is not a mental disorder and it's not something that needs to be cured.
Well, there are members of those groups who feel differently. Some testified before the committee. Some have testified in other places. People testified before the platform committee at our convention, both pro and con. Individuals,
that's actually
also
not
professionals,
true,
therapists.
You know that it's actually
I beg your pardon?
That's actually not true. I know people testified for it in front of the platform, but according to a number of groups, gay groups there, who weren't even allowed to have booths at where the platform was, they weren't allowed to argue against it because of a parliamentary procedure. Debate was closed before they had a chance to voice their opposition to it, and it was immediately put to a vote. You're aware of that, right?
I think we're conflating the process. In the platform committee, there was testimony on the issue. When the bill came to the floor,
who opposed to it testified? Do you know?
I don't know. I wasn't there. Okay. But let me be clear. In the committee, there was testimony. When the platform came to the floor, there were a number of amendments to be offered. I had some on some fiscal matters and other things, and those did not get debated because folks wanted to close debate and go home. But there was plenty of discussion on both sides of this issue.
I want to play a clip of an interview I did last year with a man named Alan Chambers, who was head of a group called Exodus International. You probably know about them. They were the oldest, probably most well-known so-called ex-gay group. He's since apologized for advocating reparative therapy. I just want to play you what he said.
I believe that causes all sorts of trauma. And I know that there are people who have taken their life because they felt so ashamed of who they are, felt like God couldn't love them as they are. And that's something that will haunt me until the day I die.
Do you now believe that it's possible to change your sexual orientation?
No, I don't.
You believe that homosexuality tears the fabric of society?
I have voted for that platform in the past. I believe that God has created us to work in a certain way. And when we deviate from that in any area, there are consequences. It doesn't mean He doesn't love us. It doesn't mean we can't love Him, we can't be saved. But if you're asking for my personal opinion, I don't believe that's God's best for the way we should live. I'm not speaking for the Republican Party. I'm giving you my opinion.
That was a job well done by Anderson Cooper. Because at the end there, as you saw, he even got him to admit that he's basically the Christian Taliban. And he says, well, look, it's all about God. It's all about God. Yeah, but there's one problem with that, buddy. You're not supposed to craft public policy based off of your idea of God. In fact, that's what this country was founded on. We are a secular government. That's what the First Amendment is about, the Establishment Clause. You know, you're not allowed to establish a religion. There's no religious test for office. There's a separation of church and state. So for him to just nonchalantly, well, it all comes back to God. Okay, great. Take it out of the fucking platform. You're not allowed to put it in there. How about that? But think about the debate that they're having, the conversation that we're having. Basically, he's saying we are coming out in support of a cure that doesn't work. Now, needless to say, being gay isn't a disease or a disorder, so you don't need a cure for something that's not a disease or a disorder. That's ridiculous. It's like making up a problem or a disease and then selling a cure. It's like making up, here, just a random name, you have toxic pox, sir. It's a new kind of disease. We just learned about it the other week, and we're going to sell you the pills to make you feel better. And then they give you sugar pills. So you're not sick. They made up the idea of toxic pox, and then they sell you sugar pills for money. So that's essentially what they're doing. But in this case, it's even more nefarious because the people who go to ex-gay therapy, it ends up making them even more depressed because then they reaffirm the idea that there's something wrong with them just based off their sexuality. So it's even more nefarious than my fake scenario that I drew up for you. But even just putting aside the fact that it's obvious that being gay, there's no disease or disorder associated with it, just the idea of being in favor of selling a cure that doesn't work, you know? I mean, could you imagine in some political party platform they say, yes, we are in favor of curing cancer by using leeches. You put the leeches on your skin and it sucks out the blood and purifies it, and then you'll get better. Okay, well, we know from science that doesn't work. So for you to come out in favor of it, you're being a stupid person. That's just stupid. That's just stupid. We are actually in favor of snake oil in order to cure heart disease. Wonderful. Thank you for letting us know that you're morons. I mean, what's the difference between that and, fucking dancing around a fire and trying to do voodoo in order to make it rain, doing a rain dance? There's no difference. There's no difference at all. And the entire party in Texas has hopped on a short bus to Cuckoo Land. So it's really just a scam when it gets down to it. But believe it or not, there's actually a part of this conversation that really gets me angry, which is that this proves to me that Anderson Cooper could be much, much better at his job. Now, look, a lot of people talk about how, he's a great news guy, and people always bring him up, at least in news circles, of, yeah, good show. But nobody watches him. His ratings are terrible, okay? And you want to know why? Because he doesn't do that every night. If he did that every night with all the different politicians and all the different guests that he had, and he actually cared about doing fact-finding in every area as much as he cared about it in this one, man, it would be a great show. I think the ratings would be fantastic. Just imagine a world where a politician comes on to Anderson Cooper's show, and Anderson Cooper doesn't let the guy off the air until he says, I'm going to fight to get us out of Afghanistan. I mean, you could hammer away on that. You could say, look, 17% of the American people want out right now. This war is more unpopular than Vietnam was at its most unpopular point. Okay, so are you going to represent the American people in a democracy, or are you going to represent Halliburton and KBR and Boeing and Raytheon and the rest of the defense contractors that give you money to run your campaign? How awesome would that show be? Oh, that would be awesome. But they don't do that. They don't do that. They don't, maybe every once in a while they'll do a decent job on one of these issues. But when was the last time you saw somebody in the media really hold a politician's feet to the fire and they said, hey, 80% of the American people are in favor of raising the minimum wage, and you're blocking it? Do you hate the American people? Did you know you're anti-democracy? Do you think you're a fascist? Do you want to be a dictator? Is that what you want to be? Because that's how you're acting right now. You do realize this is a democracy, right? Why are you blocking it? Could it be because you took money from Walmart? Is that why? Because your campaign took a bunch of money from these big corporations that are against raising the minimum wage? Is that why? I want to see you do that in those areas, because obviously you can do it because you just proved in this area that you did it. Gun background checks. 91% of the American people wanted universal background checks for guns with strong guidelines that stopped crazy people from getting guns, felons, suspected terrorists, etc. We couldn't even get a watered-down background check bill through. If all the media would act as strongly as Anderson Cooper did in this clip, and they said, okay, you just admitted you hate the American people, you disagree with them, you don't believe in democracy, because if you believed in democracy, that's the only consideration. 91% of people wanted it, and you voted against it. What is wrong with you? Tell the American people why they shouldn't vote you out right now. Tell the American people why they shouldn't try to have some sort of special recall election to get you out right now, because you're not listening to them. This is what we need. Anderson, great job in this clip, but you got to do it more often, man. And if you do it more often, your ratings will get better.